So this evening, we're just going to chat through some of the products we have, some of the disease areas as well on the animal health side, and then, as I said, Catherine's going to talk through a little bit of the technology, but more so, just a little bit on breeding as well, and dare we even talk about how breeding has probably preparations for breeding have even started at this stage. So just some new products we've brought into the market over the last few years. Nasogene C, which is a intranasal coronavirus vaccine. It's a respiratory coronavirus vaccine. Again, can be used in newborn baby calves from the day of birth. Again, it is one that we predominantly would do a lot of work and education with vets as well, kind of giving them a tool if there is problems on a particular farm, that they have a range of different vaccines to try and combat those challenges, say. Secondly, then obviously, most notably, a lot of noise being made about this product here, the orange one, which is Bovillus cryptium. So it's the first of its kind cryptosporidium vaccine given to the dam pre-calving, and then colostrum fed to the calf on the first day, and then up to 5 days transition milk feeding. So I'm sure there's some on the call have used that this year, which is we've got really, really good results so far. So we're just waiting to hear more and more of that throughout the spring. Another thing just to note then, our Bovillus intranasal, that this is an intranasal vaccine against RSV and PI3. It's just an FYI, there's a new 20-dose pack, so if you're trying to batch a few calves together, it's a little bit easier. On the technology side then, just from the top, Catherine will go through these in more detail, but obviously we sell the Senso collars, which you can buy them outright, which will, if you are a grant applicant under TAMS 3, obviously you can use that form to avail of that grant, but also we have a subscription offer there, which is basically a monthly payment up for 5 years. On the milking side then, Catherine will go through these in more detail. So our somatic cell count sensor, which will do each individual cow at each individual milking, and we'll give our cell count down to the nearest 1,000, and that's stored up onto the cloud. So at the end of the lactation, you'll have 610 odd recordings if, you know, that cow does a 305-day lactation. Similarly with the second one, it's our Milk Plus sensor. So this will do your butterfat, your protein, yield, conductivity, lactose, and blood, again for each cow at each milking. A really neat little piece of kit that can be used, I suppose, to really drive on performance and really keep an eye on those cows that are maybe slipping a little bit in protein, and trying to target them at the right time of the year, buffer feeding and so on. Anyway, as I said, Catherine will go into a little bit more detail on that. And I suppose this year as well, we're delighted to announce that we do have Sensub Young Stock, which is for newborn baby calves. I would go as far as say Irish farmers are really, really good at rearing calves. I see it at home and the cousin's place as well, but it's just when you get into the real thick of it, you know, you can't be in that calf shed every day. And before you know it, you could have a little bit of a problem. So this little tool is sitting in those calves 24/7, and it'll flag up to a farmer when there's a subclinical sign. So where the calf's not showing a sign of disease, but behind the scenes, they're actually starting to come down with a little bit of pneumonia in particular is the one that it works quite well in. So that's just a flavour of some of the new products we've brought to market and bringing to market as well. Just if you look at our full portfolio then, so the way we focus our products is across these kind of three areas. So we've products for the calf, the heifer, and the cow, and it's across, say, the preventative pillar, the technology pillar, and the treatment pillar. So just kind of an example of that then for the newborn calf would be our prevention and portfolio. So vaccines there to combat different diseases that different farms face, obviously working with your vet to have the best health protocol in place. Then our treatment portfolio, which, you know, predominantly is our cryptosporidium treatment, and also our cocci drench, or our coccidiosis treatment as well, such as Vicoxin. And then our technology pillar being the ear tag and also wand readers and things like that as well. So I suppose in summary, just so when you see that MSD logo, you kind of have a flavour now of what we're all about. So look, one of the vets wasn't available tonight, unfortunately, but I'm just going to run through a couple of the slides. But I will say from the top, I'm not a vet, so I would encourage you to a quick phone call with your vet if any of this does trigger a question for you. So look, BRD, bovine respiratory disease, you'll see that abbreviation in media articles, or you'll hear people say it online, but what it means essentially is respiratory disease affecting the respiratory tract, so the lungs of animals, predominantly pneumonia. So BRD, it's multifaceted, meaning that there's multiple different things that can affect it. and affect its onset. So it can be the environment, it can be pathogens within that environment then, and then obviously it needs a host being the baby calf as well. So message on this tonight is that a vaccine isn't going to cure all problems, but it definitely can be a pillar in your whole calf rearing piece, along with good management, hygiene, and nutrition as well. So just looking at the All Island Disease Surveillance Report, now this is from 2022, but over the last number of years, this has not changed. So what you're looking at here is the cause of mortality in cattle less than a month of age, sorry, greater than a month of age. And down the bottom here, you can see that the respiratory infections is by far the number one cause of mortality in those calves. So steps that to be taken to try and reduce this should always be considered. And as I said, it's not just about, say, a vaccine; it's that full that full holistic piece with your calf rearing system, management, nutrition, and hygiene as well. The types of pathogens. So look, I know this sometimes can fly over the head, but you'll see adverts saying, "Oh, the number one of this," or "We protect against that." So just to break it down, there's maybe three areas. So you have your viruses, your bacteria, and your parasites. Some of the most common viruses would be your RSV, PI3. This is bovine coronavirus, and then these are your IBRs, your different strain of IBRs. On the bacteria front end, again, another big list. Most common is your Mannheimia hemolytica, Pasteurella multicida, and Mycoplasma bovis, and so on. H. somni as well, cropping up as well in places. Um, but I suppose, like in the environment, there is a multitude of different pathogens there challenging the animal at different stages of their life. And I suppose the role of a vaccine is to try and reduce the risks or the incidence of an onset of a disease caused by these particular pathogens. So basically, you're priming that immune system of the animal. So when they come in contact with these types of pathogens in the field, that their system can react to that quicker than if they weren't, say, protected. So I suppose vaccines, they you're looking at them sometimes and can kind of see these as a cost, but I suppose what's the hidden cost with these types of diseases? Well, if we take milk production, in one case, there was a study done, you can see it down here, I assume it's the first one, yeah. So it was in Holstein, it was in dairy calves in the Netherlands. There was 220 calves in the study, and basically what it looked at, it was that the animals that had an outbreak of pneumonia, clinical pneumonia, in the first 8 weeks of life, because they were challenged in that early stage, it took them longer to hit their target weight at turnout, at first housing, at pre-breeding, at mating, and then at calving as well, per se. And the research found that in the first lactation, these cows were, or these heifers, I should say, we're down up to 525 litres of milk in the first lactation. Again, these are hidden costs. It is hard to see and quantify these in your day-to-day working, but this is some of the research that is out there. In a similar study then, it was shown as well that some of these animals took up to 15.2 days, so 15 days longer to get to that, to start that first lactation. On the beef side then, research there showing that basically animals that are housed with other animals, so the comrades in the same pen that are clinically sick, animals that are housed beside them or in the same airspace, can take up to 55 days, so nearly 2 months longer to fatten for those that are fattening animals. I suppose if we look at it at the minute in terms of where the prices are, milk price is looking quite good. It is quite good and is looking quite good for the foreseeable. And if we look at even the bull calf trade at the minute, it is in a very, very good place. So it's worth considering these to ensure that these hidden costs don't become a real cost to farmers. So it's having that quick phone call with the vet to say, look, I'm not vaccinated, I'm getting a squib of a cough here and there. Should we do something, and so on. Finally then, so they're all kind of the challenges. One last plug, I should say, I know Lawrence will probably kill me for all this, but the Bovilis vaccines, there is a range of vaccines there. I'm by no means advocating that every farmer should use every single vaccine. That is not the message of this, I suppose. What I am encouraging is that last line there about just giving your vet a quick phone call if you don't already have a herd plan in place per se, on just making sure that you have as many of the risks kind of boxed off for your farm and for your system. What I would say is that this Bovilis range, it's there to be used obviously by farmers, but with veteran farmers to come up with the most suitable protocol for your farm to reduce the risks of these different pathogens and these different bugs. But I'll say it again, it goes in hand with good management, hygiene, and nutrition for that matter as well. So I think at that stage, yeah, look, final little thing then is we do have a lot of some of these vaccines with concurrent use, so they can be used at the same time. I suppose the one notable little thing, that feature we have on the intranasal vaccine, so Bovilis intranasal RSP, it can be given from the day of birth. So in terms of cows' movement around the farm, and you've three tonight and you've four tomorrow and you've another few or whatever, and worrying about the day, how old they are, and then following, a protocol that might say you can only give it at day 7 or 14 or whatever. This takes the guesswork out of it. So can be a very convenient little tool, particularly in the middle of calving, to get that calf kind of up and going, protected against RSV and PI3. For your Pasteurella cover, then this is where Bovipass would come in, and you can give that as early as 2 weeks of age. If you're giving it at the same time as an IBR, it has to be given at 3 weeks of age. But again, look, I'm just making farmers aware, making you aware of, I suppose, the diseases and risks and some of the products that are here. But I would say again to work with your vet on making sure it fits for your farm. I said at the top of the call, and I'll finish on this. I think this is my last slide. New vaccine, Bovilis cryptium. It's a cryptosporidium vaccine, first of its kind on the market. It is given to the dam, so look, it is too late for anyone calving down cows at the minute, because it's a two-shot primary course, and that's given within that 12 to 3 week window out from when those cows go to calve. The first dose then is given 4 to 5 weeks apart from the second dose. And to make it nice and easy, the second dose can be given with Rotavirus Corona, and Rotavirus Corona only. It can't be given with another scour vaccine because that's what it has on the label. So at this stage, that's it from me. I'm going to pass over to Catherine now. I will pause for a second if anyone has a question. If you want to type in a question, or if you want to take off mute and maybe just ask a quick question of myself while Catherine gets her slides up on the screen. That's fine, Catherine. You can share if there's no questions, then sure you can dive straight into it.
Super, thanks, Jack. I'll just share my screen here now, and you can just let me know that you can see it, please. Because I can't. Can you see it?
No, it's not up yet.
Okay, 1 second then. It's not. Share. Put this over here. Sorry now. Okay, I think I have it now.
Yeah, it's coming up there now.
You can see that there now. Okay, yeah. Super, thanks. It's on, just coming up on this other screen. That's all. Can you see it now?
Yeah, full screen, perfect.
Full screen. Okay, perfect. I can't see anything else, so do stop me, Jack, if there's any problem. Okay, I can only see my presentation.
You're fine. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thanks very much everyone for joining. As Jack mentioned, my name is Catherine Heffernan, and I'm the Technical and Customer Success Manager. So I lead the team of 6 technical customer support. So essentially, we're the team that look after the customers with the technical side of the business, in terms of helping them get the best out of their technology and ensure that they're making the most out of the technology on their farms. So I suppose to start off, and as we've already mentioned, I'm sure there probably are many listening here tonight from the calving shed, and hopefully it's all going smooth and successful. And I suppose when we look at and start to think of breeding 2025, what you're all doing now is essentially the start of breeding 2025. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of pointers here in terms of the preparation for breeding, and then I'm going to bring you into the tools in terms of our sense of technology that may help you with some of these areas as well. So if we start off and think, there's many cows calving right now, and what are the first things that we think of, or what's the first thing that's really happening right now as cows calf? So I suppose essentially, you know, you're going to have a changed diet. There's a huge energy demand. Naturally, no matter what you do, there's always going to be a negative energy balance. And by working with, you know, your diet, getting the right feed in, getting as much energy in at this time is going to help you reduce that negative energy balance. And I suppose that's preparing your cows for the best condition for them to be in from now for preparation for breeding and hitting that hitting peak milk yield in the coming months. And I suppose, you know, really, and it's important to remember, I think it's, you know, working with customers through breeding, through our monitoring technology, you know, we often always lean back and speak about, you know, oh, I feel like I lost embryos at a certain time, and you know, what can I do, or what could cause this, and so on. And I suppose that's essentially that kind of those kind of issues that do happen in June, July. Sometimes they can be like, now can be the time to prepare for those. So the likes of embryo loss is not always a here and now, and it might not be always a here and now in May and June and so on. And essentially what you're all doing now by bridging the gap in that energy, in that with that energy balance, is going to have a huge effect on the success of that, of the breeding season at a later date. So I suppose, you know, what can be done, or what can be done, but essentially when a cow calves, there's an awful lot going on, and I see that day to day working with monitoring collars. I can see, you know, where we see a cow calves, where a cow calves, the calf is taken from the cow moves group, the cow changes diet. Essentially, you can see the challenges that it has on animals. So, you know, what you're all doing in terms of buffer feeding, putting animals out to grass, is all going to have a huge effect, a huge bonus and positive effect on this energy balance moving forward. In terms of body condition score, so cows are essentially calving down at the moment around the body condition score of 3 to 3.5, with the aim of having your body condition score between 2.75 and 3.25 for breeding. And I suppose, just, you know, a couple of pointers on body condition score. It's one I learned a few years back, which is, you know, when you look at rumen fill, it's what's in when you look at rumen fill, it's what the cow ate today. When you look at gut fill, it's what the cow ate in the last week. And when we look at body condition score, it's what the cow ate in the last month. So essentially, it's back to the point of absolutely what's happening in yards and what's going to happen in yards in the next number of weeks is the absolute basis of the successful breeding for 25. In terms of nutrition, kind of falls into the point of energy balance. So, you know, you're, you know, focusing on gradual transition diets, gradual change, especially when cows are starting to go outdoors. You know, we always think, you know, the early calvers, they're always the ones there's always plain sailing with, because, you know, we go from a good transition diet, cows going out by day potentially, and everything is a little bit more gradual. As for when weather allows, which is always great, we often do tend to open the gate and leave the cows out, and that is sometimes when some cows, the odd cow, does sometimes struggle on the back of that. But and I know that can be challenging when the milking herd gets bigger and there is a bigger demand on feed. But just to keep in mind, you know, if you think about in the back end of the year, sometimes, you know, when you start to feed silage, sometimes it takes time as well for a diet for cows to get used to the new diet. And the same applies when you put cows out to grass. You know, I often use the analogy of, it's like, you know, it's like when cows are inside, it's like eating a spud dinner. When you put cows outside, straight away they're going from spuds to soup. So naturally there has to be a bit of a transition there, and that transition will have a huge effect again on the overall cow's production, performance, energy balance, and body condition score, as I've already mentioned. Again, I suppose you can see I've milk recording up here, you know, focusing on milk recording, try to get your milk recording, get a milk recording in before breeding is always a challenge, but is obviously vital. And don't forget to focus in on, you know, you can obviously focus in and look at your milk recording from last year to help you to pick out those cows that you want to focus in on with.
Catherine,
Yeah.
someone's after taking over there. Do you want to just press share again?
Yeah.
Now you have it.
Thank you, Jack.
All right.
Uh,
Just share screen again. It just dropped off. Someone hit a button there by accident.
okay, was it you?
No, it wasn't me. No, I
Sure.
won't name and shame. It wasn't me, though.
That's all right. Um,
Now it's coming back up there for
yeah.
you.
Okay.
Now you're up. Yeah, off you go. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, just in terms of make recording, just to focus in on the information that you have from last year, from your make recordings from last year and early in the year, and obviously with that aim to try get your make recording in before breeding as best you can. This will help you then in terms of your bull selection, culling decisions. You know, definitely advise you to plan and meet with your AI advisors or your progressive advisors, and focus in on previous successes, and get those plans in place ahead of time. As well, with culling decisions, it's again identifying those cows that you don't want to breed early, because we always know that they're the cows that will slip through the net, and they will be the cows that will end up having the heifer calf, and they will be the ones that you will get, sometimes you get stuck with too. So it is identifying those cows early, and sticking to your decisions on them. I think that's very important. Then in terms of sex semen as well, I suppose trying to pick again, if you pick again from what I've mentioned on the right hand side of the screen when it comes to sex semen, so picking those cows that are in the best condition, picking the cows that have had at least minimum of one cycle already, if not two. Picking those cows that are definitely in the correct body condition score. They're younger animals that have, if at all costs, haven't had any or minimal amount of stress or health issues along the way, is going to certainly, it's certainly going to allow you to have most success with your sex semen. And then to finish on this, pre-breeding. Again, your pre-breeding, essentially, it does start from the day the cow calves. And I'll show you a little bit on our sense of monitoring collars and where that kind of fits in. But regardless, your pre-breeding essentially does start from the day the cow calves, because a normal cycle, a normal cycle after calving is between 30 to 35 days. And first heats can start to show between 8 to 12 days. But these are often silent. Heats, because there's not enough estrogen for the animals to actually show any signs of heat. But typically cows should have cycled between 38 to 47 days post calving. So any animals that have failed to have a heat over 60 days, these will be essentially postpartum and estrus cows, and that would most definitely need to be handled or treated by your vet. But what we would see ourselves from our own technology is, typically, from working with the vets, typically you would see about 10% of these cows in most herds. And I suppose it's essentially is happening now, and it's important not to forget. I think we always focus on pre-breeding just the weeks before breeding, but it's important not to forget the cows that come, those later cows and those later calvers, to ensure that they are also getting their every chance to get one, if not two cycles in. So just to take you on then, to bring you through some of our Sense Hub technology solutions, which essentially, do feed into some of the points which we've already discussed here. So I'll go through a number of these in a little bit more detail. So essentially, what you can see here is our Sense Hub ecosystem. So our Sense Hub, to a lot of people, some people think Sense Hub is just monitoring collars, but our Sense Hub ecosystem and Sense Hub is all of the above products which you can see on the screen. So we have our monitoring, our Sense Hub monitoring collar, which it would have been our first technology within here. We have our Sense Hub inline somatic cell count sensor, Sense Hub inline milk plus sensor. We have our Sense Hub drafting gate, and most recently we have our Sense Hub young stock. So to start out, with our Sense Hub monitoring collars, so our behavior monitoring collar. So we have both a monitoring collar and a monitoring ear tag. So farmers can use whichever one they prefer. It's totally personal preference. You don't have to have both of them on the animal, you just have to have one. So there's 9 different animal behaviors that these monitor. The 3 main ones are eating, rumination, and activity. But there are others in the background which are constantly feeding into the algorithms. So both devices monitored essentially the same behaviors, just slightly different. And the information is gathered off the animal every minute of the day and is stored in the device in the collar for 24 hours at any point. So once the cow comes back into signal of the reader, so there's a reader placed on generally the back of the milking parlour. Once the animals come back into signal of this reader, they drop off their information. So cows do not need to be in signal at all time. They just need to be in signal once within the 24 hours. But generally cows are going to be when they come in for milking in the evenings anyway. We also, if they're for heifer units, we have solutions for heifer units. We have solutions as well for any type out farms as well. So it's not just for your dairy herd. Sense of monitoring collars can go on animals. Well, I'll tell you about young stock shortly, but essentially for dairy from as weanlings. So what is the information within the monitoring collar ear tag? What's in there? What comes off the cow and how is it presented? And what are its benefits? So typically in the reproduction side of SenseHub, we have the animals in heat list. So the animals in heat list essentially when the cow is actively jumping, once her peak activity is met, when she starts to fall off that, she'll appear on your screen, so on the screen on your app. So you can see here, for example, we see here cow 1657. You can see she's a second lactation animal. She's 39 days in milk. Her breeding window is 0 right now, and she's a heat index of 92. So essentially, the heat index ranges from 50 to 100. The closer the animal is to 100, the higher the chance that she's in heat. It will take into consideration, with the heat, it generally takes into consideration a drop of rumination, an increase in activity, and a change in eating. It also will take into consideration when the cow calved, which we've already discussed, as cows can start cycling as short as 8 days after calving. So it will take into consider when the cow last calved, if the information is there. If it's not, it's fine. It will just take the basis of the information that it's already there if the collar isn't on long enough. And this then gives you your heat index. So typically with the dairy herd, most animals are generally anywhere 85 and above. But we're there, and that's what the technical team are there for, to support the farmers to interpret this information too. So you can see on the left hand side there, we see the breeding window. So once the cow is on the screen, you can see the colored graph. So on the left hand side, you can see we have 2 windows, 2 bars, I guess. On the top, we have the sex semen bar, and on the bottom we have the conventional semen bar. So you can see there's hour 26 to hour -4, and the black triangle is there just over 7 hours now. And what that means is there's 7 hours until this cow is completely gone off the screen. But we can see the 7 hours. What we really want to do is align it with the color. So the green on the top is the optimum for sexed, and essentially on the bottom, yes, green is the guide for conventional, but with conventional, as we know, the semen will live for 24 hours. So with conventional semen, we would advise anywhere in the first yellow, green, second yellow, and even into the orange. It's not the end of the world. But with sex semen, we would encourage people to be as particular as they can in terms of sex semen timing. So that's typically that's the main piece, the main part of the reproduction module, and essentially that is what we find a lot of people find that's why they buy SenseHub. But there really is so much more, and I've already discussed pre-breeding and its importance, and we have a report called the anestrus cow report, and your anestrus cow report essentially is what from the day the cow calves, pre-breeding starts for her. So if a cow doesn't cycle for 50 days, she lives in that anestrus report. That anestrus report is the report that's then presented to the vet, let it be 10 to 14 days before breeding. Animals are handled, treated accordingly. They'll stay in that list until they cycle again. So there's absolutely no manual work or physical putting in information into any systems. She'll leave that list when she cycles, and you don't need to worry about her anymore. Collars need to be on cows 30 days for this report to kick in. And generally, we advise our users as well to look at keep an eye on this report. So again, it's back to that where I said it's important not to forget late calvers. So if you're then 2-3 weeks into breeding, you can go back and still look at that list, and maybe get the vet again to have a look at the ones who aren't cycling, who might have calved slightly later. So it's a really, really useful tool. A really, really useful tool, and we always see cows that get treated that leave the list. You always see them, getting that extra chance and getting caught they end up getting caught with AI the first round or second round, and oftentimes sometimes they wouldn't be got until the third round, and they might only be given one chance. So similarly to that, we have irregular heats, and irregular heats are essentially cystic cows. So any cow that has 3 or more cycles in 30 days lives in that report. So these two reports kind of go hand in hand, and these are the reports that we would encourage those to present to their vets come pre-breeding. I've shown you what essentially what the SenseHub app looks like, and typically that's what it would look like on anyone's phone during the breeding season. I'll just give you an example here of a farm that I worked with. It was actually 3 years ago, and this is a typical example where this farm, they were tail painting, observing cows. The challenge was there was 2 of the family working off farm, so they were really limited with the amount of time that they could get to look at the cows all the time. So they were to be observing them for heat. So they ended up saving at least 1 hour per day, plus the tail paint observation in the parlor, by putting sensitive collars on their cows. And their 6-week calving rate went from 60% to 78% in 1 year. And typically 1%, a 1% increase in 6-week pregnancy rate is €8.22 per cow. So when you do the maths on this, for this one particular farm, it was an increase of €20,000, which it seems absolutely crazy. But I suppose when you think about being able to get those cows back in calf, getting more days in milk, it really doesn't be long about adding up. And as we know, the cost of one missed heat is €250 alone as well. So I've discussed a bit on the reproduction side of SenseHub, which is again, animals in heat list, sex semen timing, and so on. I suppose that's generally why we always feel farmers reach out to us and look to buy monitoring collars. But really, another huge part, which people often they ring me a week or two after being on farm, and they say, geez, I didn't realize, that I knew that SenseHub would help me with health, but I didn't really realize to this extent. So SenseHub health monitoring, it essentially works similar enough to the way it measures reproduction. So it measures the cow's behavior every single day, every single minute, and each animal is measured against her own behavior. There are certain times when she will be measured against the herd, but typically it's her own behavior. So if a cow, for any reason, if there's any sort of illness coming on, it's going to be very much relative to her. So what we would see is if for example, you'd see the likes of milk. We would see examples of milk fever, LDAs, RDAs, pneumonia, um, any, or it would Sensible pick up 87% of E. coli mastitis cases, so it won't pick them all up. But all of these will be generally before there's clinical signs. But animals can often hide sickness and hide illness, and that's very much back to thousands of years ago. Because when an animal used to show, if an animal ever showed weakness, then they'd be killed. So that's why sometimes, cows, often cows are actually sick for longer than you ever think. Even the best stock person, sometimes can, when you see on Sense Hub how long an animal may actually have been sick for, and there's zero signs. And often we hear that back from some of our vets and vets that we work with as well, that they get called to a case and they actually find it challenging to diagnose the animal with the illness. But at the end of the day, the cow is picked up early. There's less antibiotics need to be used, and the animal is back in the system quicker. So essentially, the animal is being compared to herself. It's measuring rumination, eating, activity, side lying, heavy panting, and it would show up an alert. Again, it can be used as well for diet change. We see scenarios where when animals are moved to groups, you can see that they come up as animals inspect when they change diet, and so on. So, you really can use it to, you can use it as a management tool on your farm to to get those animals early, and as I said, get them back into the system as fast as possible. So I'll give you an example here. So this is an example of a cow that got, actually this is this is an example of a cow that got pneumonia. So I'll just show you typically. You can see here the purple line is rumination. So we can see that this cow is ruminating at about 600 rumination minutes, which is typical when cows are indoors. We see, and we see, and for anyone maybe who is using Sensub or any type of monitoring technology, you would see that when rumination does drop, when cows go outside, you normally see cows in Ireland, when they get settled on grass, they typically ruminate for about 450 rumination minutes. But we see here, this example, the rumination is 600, eating is the green one, and the eating is the green one, and orange one is activity. So we can see here this cow has absolutely fallen off the cliff fairly quickly, and this is an example of pneumonia. But again, even though this looks like on paper this animal is really, really sick and she'd be really obviously sick, she actually wasn't. So it wasn't until her temperature was taken that she actually showed that she was sick. But we can see, and you can see how quick the response to treatment was there, and she's back on the mend very quickly. You can see it here on the app. When you have a quite sick animal, you can zoom in very closely into the information, and you can see it really clearly that the animal starts to eat and then she starts to ruminate. So then we move on to Sensub milking. So Sensub milking was new to our Sensub ecosystem about 3 years ago, but we've really only launched it in the last year, and it is only going to be seen more and more. So within our Sensub milking, we have 2 products, which I'll go into more detail shortly. But first, I suppose if we look inside the farm gate when it comes to milk production and the challenges within. So, typically every farm has a milk connection roughly every 2 days. I know at home we're certainly the farm that gets the odd collections here and there and does the extra fill or the small fills on the loads as well. So when that happens, as we know, it's really difficult to figure out how much milk is coming out of the cows per day. And especially this time of year when it comes to all the fresh cows coming into the parlour. Like if I ask any of you how much are your cows milking, how many litres are your cows milking per day, it's really difficult to know. And it's really difficult to manage and feed an animal that we actually don't know its energy output, and it's no different than like athletes. It's the exact same applies. So it can be challenging when we don't know. And we know that only 55% of dairy herds are milk recording. So that's roughly around 4.5 data points per year in terms of milking. When it comes to protein, fat, your milk urea, somatic cell count readings, I know different co-ops are probably different. Some you're guaranteed at every single collection and some you're not. So again, that can be challenging when you're trying to manage feed intakes, any types of ketosis, acidosis along the way. It can be challenging when you don't have this information all the time. As we know, milk base price is butter fat 3.6 and protein 3.3. And I remember this time, I remember earlier in the year, I pulled out this table, and this table actually came from the ICBF milk recording. And it showed that on the 31st of March over 2002, 2003, and 2004, the average milk protein, as you see, it was 3.2 in 22, 3.22 in 23, and 3.26, all of which were essentially below base price. And the challenge with that is it's the 31st of March, and there's such a flood of milk going into the bulk tank from now until the 31st of March that you don't, I would say it's like a false it's like a false reading, because the milk is so concentrated, there's so many fresh cows, and you don't know what's in there. So it's back to, the point at the start I made in terms of the importance of trying to get a milk recording, but to actually know what's coming out of those cows and be able to treat those cows accordingly. And if those cows do need a slight bit of extra feed, or if they do need to be buffer fed or milked once a day or so on, but it would be like, it certainly would be known as the 6 week crash. And as we know, like, liters are going to be up, milk protein and fat are the ones that we're going to get paid on. And that's, obviously, again, with the excellent milk price at the moment, it's even more important to know what's coming out of the cows. So within our Sense Hub ecosystem, as I'd mentioned, we have our Sense Hub Milk Plus inline Milk Plus sensor. And what this is, you can see a picture of it on the screen. It's a meter that this meter is inline, so you don't really see it. There's no digital screen or anything on it, but the information that it measures is yield, fat, protein, lactose, blood, and conductivity. And this measures this is a measurement of every single milking, and goes into the Sense Hub app. Again, it's important to note, I didn't mention at the start, all of our products, you can have one, you can have two, you can have them all. You don't have to have them all. So essentially, if you just wanted this product, you can just have this product. But this information feeds into the Sense Hub app, and you can see the information from every cow. So you can see it here in the screen. This is what it looks like. You have your yield, fat, protein, and your for every single milking. So essentially, I can give you just a bit of an example of, I can give you an example here. So if I give you an example of what a milk protein drop looks like and what one can do when they actually measure this. So this is an existing farmer who measures their milk through the Sense Hub milking technology. So with a 0.2% of milk protein drop for a cow milking 27 liters of milk, and this is actually at a lower milk price, a good bit of a lower milk price than what we're at today. But that's working out at about €1,400 per month for 100 cows. So if you think about that, that's, it's nearly €4,500. It's nearly €4,500 if you've 300 cows, but not even if you've 100 cows over 2 months, it's over $3,000, and that is only representing a drop of 2.2% of milk protein. So I suppose the question is, how can measuring your milk, fat, protein, and yield every day be of benefit? And I suppose the big thing is, and how will it not create loads of extra work? Because we all know the challenge of labor, and you just want these things to be simply resolved. So essentially, we can see here on the screen, we would have created a transition report with this farmer, and the basis of this report would have been identify the cows that are producing milk fat of under 3.7 and milk protein under 3.3. And also cows that are are dropping milk. So this report will present this to the farmer. The farmer can then, if they want to keep, draft these cows out, keep them in at night, give them some extra energy. They could milk them once a day, give them extra feed. It just makes managing these cows a lot easier when you know exactly who they are. You can manage them accordingly. If you want to create a smaller group and keep them in, it's easy to do. Another example, we have a farmer who uses a similar report, and what they do, they also have a sense of drafting gate. But again, like, you wouldn't have to. You could easily punch the numbers in, but if you had something else, and really what they're doing is they put in the cows that are calved for the first 10 days, and they draft them in, keep them in the night. And they can clearly see with this drafting report that the milk protein is instantly going up, and that is money in the bank at the end of the day. And we know an increase of 0.1% of milk protein is worth 0.85 cent per litre. So in terms then, moving on then to our somatic cell count inline sensor. So our somatic cell sensor, inline somatic cell count sensor, is a automated California milk test. So essentially there's a sample of milk, there's a 1 ml sample of milk taken and mixed with reagent. And within 90 seconds of cupping the cow, you will have a reading for this cow. So this particular system works in two ways. You can have it as standalone, and you can see basically when it's standalone, there's lights. There's a little light put on each swing over arm, say, for example, and there's a traffic light system. So there's green, red, and orange, and you can see here on the screen the scale of the traffic light system. So within 90 seconds, you'll be identified as to what the somatic cell count of those cows are. So we have a number of farmers using this technology, a lot of farmers using this technology, and it's really simple, works well, it's really handy, it's visual, and a lot of milkers and workers really enjoy working with this. It's really simple. So you'd see if a cow is marked with a red light, a red orange light this morning, you taper, see what she's going to be like in the evening. If necessary, give up anti-inflammatories. It helps reduce any cross contamination. And this system, as I said, can be standalone, or it can be also connected. So if it's connected into your SenseHub app, you'll have a reading for every single milking. And again, you can look back on this information and you can breed off it. You can use all of this information. The same with all the milk production, or all the milk information. You can use it for breeding, or even just to see how the herd is actually getting on throughout the year. So what is somatic cell count costing us as an industry? And I took this graph from ICBF today, and I actually thought hard. I had this from last April or last August, and then I thought hard about what was a fair one to show, or a fair representation. So what I did was I actually took this report. This is milk recording report from the middle of April. So what I was trying, like, the point here was, cows are settled in. Into milking at this point. Now I know it's fair to say, like last April obviously posed its own challenges with weather and so on. But look, even you look just to take, I suppose, that maybe into account slightly. But if we look here, the average, so this is over 914 herds that were recorded. The average somatic cell count here was 173. The best, you can say 40% were at 150. The worst 40% are at 200. So I suppose, look, you're talking the variation here of between 100 and 300 across the board. So what's that costing? Like, what is that costing a farm typically? So there we have the on screen here now. I have the Animal Health Ireland cost calculator. So this here indicates the cost of milk yield loss in 100 cow herd, and this is not taking into consideration any mastitis treatments, culling, heifer replacements. There's none of that are included. And for the average somatic side count of 100,000 to 200,000 for 100 cow herd at a milk price of 50 cent, and even at that, its milk price is far more. Even you can say for 60 cent is over 20,000. So if we go back and look here and look and say, you know, the average somatic side count is 173. You're saying it's roughly costing about over 20,000 per herd, and that is solely down to the amount of milk loss when the cow's udder is, you know, inflamed, and when she is fighting infection, that she's inflamed. It is totally down to the loss of production. I know it seems like a crazy figure, but that is an that is coming from the Animal Health Ireland cost calculator, and there's a QR code there, and you can use it if and put in your own details if you wish. I'm coming to the end nearly now. So this our latest product to our portfolio is Sense-Hub Young Stock. Sense-Hub Dairy Young Stock, and Sense-Hub Dairy Young Stock is the first and only monitoring solution that can be put into an animal from the day of birth. So essentially, it's the ear tag, which I mentioned already. It is the same ear tag that we have had for our dairy cows. It would work in our dairy cows, but the algorithms are new for Sense-Hub Young Stock. So essentially, there's two algorithms within. We have a suckling and a weaned algorithm. The tag measures suckling, rumination, eating, and activity. Obviously, baby calves don't ruminate straight away, but they will start to develop fairly quickly, and once they start to develop their rumen. And secondly, it also takes into account the age of the calf. So this product is new to Ireland, but it is in over 20,000 calves around the world. So we essentially brought this to market to autumn calvers pre-Christmas, and we have had great success and feedback from our users. So essentially, when the tag is put into the calf's ear, within 27 hours of putting the tag in, any health issues will begin to be flagged on the basis of the measures that I already mentioned. So the user will be notified on their app, but also there's an LED light on the tag. So for example, if you have different people working on the farm, it's as easy to say, go into the calf shed at milk when you're feeding them milk if you're in the calf shed between 4 and 6 o'clock in the evening, have a look around and see, is there any calves that have a flashing light? If they do, and you can give them like an SOP, check temperature, have a look at their eyes, see, is there seed, is the calf have scour, is there does the calf have a snotty nose, and so on, and you can put a treatment in place. I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm superly passionate about young stock, so I could talk about it for all day and give you examples all day. But I'll give you a couple of examples that we have had from farmers using this here. So one particular example, so you can see here on the animal to inspect list, there's the weaned calf 2244 comes up, and what we see here is on the graph again, so purple is rumination. Now this calf obviously is ruminating properly because it's weaned. So this would have came up as an alert to the farmer. These particular calves, they go off to an open type shed once they're weaned. The farmer visits that farm once, twice a day, just to give them silage and meal. So this farmer said that he didn't. He thought that the calf looked fine, came and ate silage meal, perfect. He said he thought maybe it could have been slightly off, but was not too concerned. And then by the time he went back to the farm again, he could see that the health index was dropping. So he came back and treated the calf for pneumonia, but really didn't even really believe that the calf was too sick or really had it. But you can see here the increase in it, like, even though it would have been, I'm pretty sure like the calf would have been on the screen for at least a day or so, but he just kind of didn't take too much heat to it. But it did show that it, I suppose the most important part of this that I thought was so interesting was the calf had no clinical signs, and that is absolutely what we're seeing across the board. In terms, the calves don't have clinical signs, and then you're getting in treating them, and they're not getting that chance to get sick. They're coming back, and this is a particular example right on the back of what Jack mentioned. Calf with, or an animal with pneumonia, you're 500 liters less in your first lactation. A second example is a 9-day-old calf with scour. So this particular calf was transitioning from just a nipple-fed feeder to an automatic calf feeder, and the farmer thought that the calf was just coming up in the health screen because of it moving and stress and all so involved. And he said he went to check the calf, and the calf actually had no ill symptoms, but had scour. And then the following day, he could see that from the calf feeder, the calf's milk intake was down. We also see, but being honest, which I just thought, again, it's no clinical signs. That farmer gave the calf electrolytes, the calf recovered, the calf never got the chance to be sick or really dehydrated. And again, there was no use for antibiotics. It was completely electrolytes for this particular example again. You'd see we've lots of other examples in terms of dehorning. When calves are being dehorned, it completely does show how it has an impact on them. And yeah, and similarly, it's getting those calves early, but the farmers who have used this so far are extremely happy, and we're really, really, really looking forward to seeing how this is going to work when calves are outside. And they have used this with calves outside in New Zealand with great success. So I'm really looking forward to the year ahead. So if anybody is interested, obviously this one's very irrelevant right now, as are the monitoring collars and our other products. But if there's anybody who wants to hear more on any of it, yeah, you can feel free to reach out to any of our team. Their details are there on screen now. But I'm happy to take any questions as well, along with Jack as well. Here now.
Catherine, just a quick question
Yeah.
on the young stock tags. Do they go across the whole life cycle, so from calf to cow? And if not, is that kind of in the pipeline? Like, I know those algorithms would be different. Yeah, just wondering.
Yeah, sure. Or it's a great question. So yeah, they do. So essentially, you can put the tag in the calf when the calf is born, and once the calf is weaned, she moves to the weaned group. Once she turns 365 days old, it will turn into the same as the sense of dairy, as we would call it, and it will start to pick up heats. Some people do ask us, oh, is the tag going to do away with the collar? But it's a total personal preference. Like, every farm is different. Some farmers, say for example, have collars on their cows, and they see this as, I'll put tags on my calves, I'll leave them in until they're heifers, and then I can buy more tags for my calves. Or then some farmers have collars on their heifers, and they'll just buy tags for their calves. You get me? So it is, every case I think is different, but there is something that suits all. Yeah.
Great, thanks.